Hello, team. Welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MSP. It's Ukraine War news update. I don't even know. It's the first part thereof for, I don't know what date we're on. Let's go the 7th, but it's the 8th, really. Depends where you are in the world. This is also a very late news piece, as in most of this news is from what is now effectively yesterday morning, my time. I'm in Ukraine at the moment. It's quite difficult to get uh, news to you in the time frame I'd normally do that. So it is what it is. Anyway, this was what happened some time ago, some almost 24 hours ago now, or something like that. 890 personnel lost, 7 tanks, 22 armored personnel vehicles, and 20 artillery systems. I think that suggests that the Russians are somewhat on the attack. I mean, predominantly that's going to be around Avdiivka, but also Novomykhailivka too. Personnel losses could also include, and equipment losses, areas around Krinky, one multiple launch rocket system. Although it says only 4 drones and 1 cruise missiles, that it would be from the night before, because there's usually a 24-hour lag on that. 33 pieces of vehicle, 33 vehicles and fuel tanks, and 1 piece of special equipment. So fairly average day. 890 is still a huge number of troops to lose in a day. Let's be fair. And 22 APVs and 20 artillery systems is nothing to sniff at. And actually, 7 tanks too. So, yeah, fairly challenging day for the Russians. As we can see by the loss statistics compiled by Andrew Perpetua, by looking at the socials, you can see that the ratio is fully in favour of the Ukrainians there, about a 5-to-1 loss ratio. I would estimate, at looking at that, exactly what they'd need. As for the Ukrainian losses, nothing of great value there. A couple of tanks, a couple of infantry fighting vehicles, not particularly high value ones, really across the board there. And for the Russians, we have a couple of bits of surveillance equipment, maybe a Brem engineering vehicle, some artillery pieces, nothing too valuable, and then quite a range of tanks there, including a T90M, which is their highest value tank, really. T72s, T80 as well, and then infantry fighting vehicles, just a range of BMPs, some MTLBs, and then civilian trucks and vehicles. It's just the sheer, as I said the day before, sheer mass of equipment that the Russians have lost means that value-wise they've lost an awful lot more than the Ukrainians. So, yeah, that is again supporting the sorts of figures we see on a daily basis from the general staff. What else can I say? There's been a special forces attack. This one is in the Black Sea near the coast of temporarily occupied Crimea. The result of Operation Citadel. Important enemy equipment was captured and a mast with an antenna was blown up. The enemy used the equipment to control part of the Black Sea and adjust fire on the southern, at the south of Ukraine. This is concerning a sort of rig, I think, somewhere out in the Black Sea again, but maybe closer to Crimea, where special forces have done their thing. You can go and watch that online in various places. This is Defense of Ukraine, the official MOD, Ukrainian MOD page on Twitter. You can go and find the footage of that. I can't show it because I get restricted. And then another accumulation of Russian losses in the Novomykhailivka area, where they're just, losing a lot of kit, and there's geolocation of a lot of kit. I mean, just so much kit that gets taken out. And Andrew Perpetua, one of his recent live streams, just talking about the sheer volume of stuff around there and how the difficulty in geolocating, because some of the imagery you can't even tell because it's often quite far away. You think, oh, that could be a vehicle. Actually, on closer inspection, it turns out that's like 3 vehicles right next to each other blown up. Okay, moving on to distant strikes. There was a fairly substantial barrage of missiles and Shaheeds shot last night. Now, a couple of things to say before we look at the details of this. And it's basically what I've been saying for a long time, which is you would if you could, you answer, you can't. This is the biggest attack we've seen for quite a long time now, but it's also not massively significant compared to the sorts of attacks that we saw a year ago. At the height of the Russian attacks on the energy infrastructure in Ukraine, we saw 120 missiles and drones fired. What are we seeing here? Well, we've got 20 drones and 29, 32, 35, 39. So that's 59. We've waited quite a long time for this. We've been wondering, oh, is it going to be a big one when it comes? And we have 59 aerial threats. That is not a significant wave. Now, they've obviously got targets, right? They've set a bunch of targets out there, and they've sent 59 threats towards those targets, right? Missiles and drones. Now, if you could send 120 at the same time, it's not like, oh, we can't find any more targets. Just take the targets you've got, but send 120 drones instead, like double the drones, because you can, right? You can. So why wouldn't you even more overcome the air defenses even more? Like, if you could, you would, but you aren't. So surely the only explanation is that you can't. Because even if you say, well, they're stockpiling for something else, well, that's what we said last time, and the time before, and the time before, and that still hasn't materialized. So that stockpiling for what? And if you are having to stockpile, it means you can't fire a large amount. Your production capacities still aren't big enough. If you're having to hold some back from being shot because you need to keep them for a future attack, then it means you don't have enough for a large future attack and a large present attack. So even if you're using stockpiling as an excuse, then it still means that the production isn't reaching the required numbers. Nonetheless, it was a pretty horrible attack last night. It just could have been twice as bad if the Russians had the missiles that some people think they have. So Ukrainian air defense has intercepted 29 out of 39 Russian missiles, so that's a 74.4% interception rate, which is not bad considering the types of missiles, and 15 drones out of 20, so that is three quarters there, so it's 75%. Okay, so 26 out of 29, or 89.6% of KH-101 missiles. So those are cruise missiles, fairly easy to shoot down. Caliber, likewise, they're very successful against Caliber these days. But when it comes to your more ballistic missiles, the Iskander-M missiles, 0 of 3, and 0 of 4 KH-22 missiles were shot down as well. Well, I don't know if those stats include what is mentioned here, but sorry, no, not there. It's do I have it? I might have to go and find it, but there is a Zircon 3M22 missile. There's fragments of that have been found. That is a hypersonic missile, a bit like the Dagger, but it's not the Dagger. It's a new one that is in its design phase still at the moment. I will go and find this for you because I want to communicate that to you. Yeah, here it is. So this is Anton Gerashchenko saying Russia might have used its new 3M22 Zircon hypersonic missile for the first time against Ukraine this morning, according to Defense Express. Photos of the wreckage labeled ZM22 have been published. They were found allegedly in Dniprovsky district of Kyiv, near the affected power line. The publication assumes that the missile was shot down, as it's unlikely that the power line was its target. Further investigation of the missile will be conducted. This is that's not actually the full detailed one I wanted. Claims that it can travel at Mach 9 or about 6,900 miles an hour. Makes it hard to shoot down. It's one of the newest cruise missiles designed for both naval and land targets. The Russian Navy took it into service in 2023. Little is known about the missile. In fact, it is still in its development stage. Development and testing stage in Russia. So, yeah, interesting news if that is the case. And I don't know whether that is therefore included in that as maybe misidentified one of those, or it's a separate missile entirely. So there is that. Then there is this, and this is highly controversial. So 2 of the 5 missiles that are fired at Kharkiv turned out to be North Korean KN-23 missiles. highly controversial because North Korea is getting very obviously involved in providing weapons for Russia. What is South Korea saying about this? What is the United Nations saying about this? There needs to be an answer to that. So Kiev was targeted. In fact, I spoke to Rick, the Ukrainian, this morning, who had a terrible night because the debris from two missiles landed only a couple of 100 meters from where he lives, and he was woken up with windows shaking, stuff moving on his walls, and then he eventually got back to sleep and basically had nightmares about buildings blowing up. And again, this talks to the idea of the effect of bombing on people um, outside of the obvious, death and injury and the destruction of buildings. There's psychological effect, trauma that happens to people, every day in Ukraine. Anyway, there were missiles sent against Kyiv, Kharkiv, Mykolaiv, Cherkasy, Drohobych, all places suffering from some pretty large-scale attacks. But as I mentioned, not quite as large as they might otherwise have been. Lots of footage about this and big craters caused by some of these ballistic missiles. I don't know what was hit. When you look at the stats and you think, right, there's 7 missiles plus 3 more there, so 10 missiles have hit their targets. Well, actually, I'm fairly sure that some of the craters shown here indicate that actually targets weren't hit, at least not directly, but some of those missiles that were not intercepted might not have reached their intended target still. But nonetheless, there still would have been some damage to whether it's military infrastructure or some other critical infrastructure. I don't know. Zelensky and Western leaders reacted to the Russian morning attacks. Well, the EU's top diplomat, Joseph Borrell, was in Kiev at the time, and he had to spend the morning in an air raid shelter. He said, "This is the daily reality of the brave Ukrainian people." I would love someone like Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, to go, or Donald Trump to go to um, Kiev, to visit Kiev for some diplomatic reason, and then to really experience something like this, having to go into an air raid shelter rather than go to their meeting because you know what, Russia is attacking the capital city of Ukraine. And, see what this feels like, experience it, and then see whether your opinions remain what they are. Recovery work is still going on in Mykolaiv after the morning shelling. It says says Euromaidan Press. 71 structures were hit, 3 buildings were totally destroyed across Ukraine. The extensive Russian attack has left 5 dead and more than 40 injured. I don't know if there's more than that now as people are pulled from rubble. You can see that massive crater right in the middle there. That seemed like a fairly direct hit, but it's not. As in, it seems like that's not been taken down by air defenses. That is the missile exploding, causing a big crater, but not really hitting anywhere meaningful. Explosions were then later reported in Belgorod, and the air alarm was active. There are explosions there, and various reports of preliminary info that the arrival was recorded at the Stroykolor ZHBK1 plant for building materials. Prior to the arrival, air defense was active, but apparently wasn't able to intercept. So something struck in Belgorod. And then this later today is a massive explosion. This is in Yagul near Izhevsk in Russia. This is about 1,300 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. So this is a long way away. Not quite sure what happened. According to Russian sources, the cause of the powerful explosion in the vicinity of Izhevsk was some tests on the territory of the Votkinsk machine building plant. The plant produces missiles for the Russian army, such as the Iskander or ICBMs. This is a significant hit, in my opinion. Whether it was a hit by Ukrainian long distance drones or similar, or whether it was some kind of partisan activity, I don't know. That is no small explosion. And to do that kind of damage to a missile producing factory could then go back towards this kind of idea that and also, I don't have it here. let me find it for you. This is really, really important. Yes, this was it. So this goes back to the idea that, you know, I don't think they are firing as many Shaheeds and missiles as uh, otherwise might be thought, because I think the production numbers are lower than we might have thought. And this is kind of backed up by the cost of Shaheeds for Russia being reported by a group of hackers that hacked into mail servers of the Iranian company IRGC, Sahara Thunder, and containing what they found was data containing the production of Shahed 136 loitering munitions for Russia. Okay, so what it amounted to is that these costing way, way more than had been previously claimed. So it was something like um, 30,000, I think, dollars they were supposedly going for. But it turns out that actually they were being, I think, being paid in gold, which is very interesting in itself, because actually there's that shows that they don't have the kind of cash to hand, and they're also paying way more for these than $30,000. So that article broken down here, and the letter or the kind of invoice seen on it. So finally, we have a unit cost for the Shahed 136, $193,000 for orders 6,000 units, and $290,000 for orders of 2,000 units. So even if you buy them at, a huge number of 6,000 units, you're still paying $193,000 rather than $30,000. So needless to say, this is much greater than what's predicted by UAS fetishists, and indicates an uncompetitive cost curve with traditional cruise missiles. And I think the one of the analyses is that, let's have a look here. Even if you're making them in Russia, a localized production in Russia, the cost is projected at 50,000 a unit. So again, that's still higher. Yeah, just I think this goes towards the idea that they probably don't have as many because they're much more expensive than was previously thought, and they clearly can't produce enough of the missiles. And I was wondering, I was chatting today about whether Iran might be wanting more of these Shaheeds themselves, and so maybe not exporting as many um, for that reason, because they're getting embroiled in their own sort of issues. Anyway, yeah. So there's been explosions in Russia, big old explosions there, and it appears that I think that will have an impact on production of these missiles that we're seeing is already impacted. And indeed, there have been strikes on these facilities previously, not that particular one, but other ones closer to the border. And I think that might well have affected the production schedules for those missiles. Anyway, on to the final sort of bits and pieces segment. Not too much to add here. Soldiers of the ZSU, so Ukrainian Armed Forces, complain en masse about the terrible speed of Starlinks on the front. Elon Musk, I mean, is this him again causing issues? Really poor speeds, and that then affects the Ukrainians' ability to conduct military activities on the front line. It's just so unfair to me that so many things are stacked against the Ukrainians at the moment, like people arguing to toss in Congress. Um, Certain Republican politicians not seeming to just genuinely not wanting to give aid to Ukraine for some weird reason. Tucker Carlson going and schmoozing in Moscow and throwing disinformation out there, and none of this is helping Ukraine, and all of this is deeply, deeply unfair. Like, where is the goodness of people in the world? Just really irritates me. And then just let's end on a weird but actually pretty distasteful example of childhood indoctrination. I will grow up to be a military chemist. I will make bombs out of dough. Children's song in Russia. What Russia does to its children is a crime of its own. I'd agree with this. This is just horrific. Soon I will grow up and want to be a chemical. I mean, really? Military chemist. Bombs out of dough I will make. Russian army is waiting for me. Oh dear. Strong, courageous, and valiant. Strong in spirit, and most important, they sing, army of ours, it will always protect. Army of ours is strong in spirit. Army of ours will always protect. Is that army of ours is strong in spirit? Is that to protect you from Ukrainians that weren't going to invade? That Ukrainians were happily just getting on with their lives? Is that what the army is protecting you from? Anyway, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. I need to go and get some sleep now. Toodle pips from Ukraine.